Ubisoft has a little bit of a problem. They're putting out 6 to 7 games a year and still losing money. Their strategy seems to be to throw as much shit against the wall as possible and see what sticks. Spoiler alert, nothing does. And now the latest Assassin's Creed is out, and a lot is riding on this game. The reviews are looking good, but let's be real, can you really trust review sites anymore? I mean, did Odyssey really deserve a 9.2 IGN?
What? Are you out of your mind?
From what I've gathered, it looks like this is just another safe Ubisoft game, following the same patterns as the previous ones. But how did we get here? It wasn't always like this. Once upon a time, Ubisoft was the cool kid on the block, launching new IP after new IP that would define a generation of gaming. But now, they're that washed up kid who peaked in high school trying to sell you NFTs and shitcoins that are definitely going to blow up, bro. Let's take a look at the history of Ubisoft. It's 1984, and 5 brothers form Guillemot Informatique, a supplier for computer hardware in northwest France. They've just stumbled on a real-world cheat code. What is it? Turns out you can import computer hardware from the UK and sell it in France for half the normal price. This allowed the brothers to wipe the floor with the competition, and they quickly became one of the largest computer and software suppliers in France. In 1986, they formed Ubisoft, short for Ubiquitous Software. But they don't have any games. A publisher needs games, and they had a pretty interesting idea for how to convince developers to build for them. Hey guys, wanna come and live in my chateau and make video games for a living?
Hell yeah!
By 1987, Ubisoft had already published 5 games and even imported some into France. Things are going great, really great, but turns out, chateaus are stupid expensive to run. Between utilities and feeding moat gators, Ubisoft said, yeah, let's just go to Paris. By 1988, one of the brothers, Yves Guillemot, becomes CEO of Ubisoft, and he's still CEO to this day. He begins forming partnerships with companies like EA, and with that, Ubisoft quickly becomes the largest video game distributor in France. Through the late 80s and early 90s, they expand throughout Europe and form in-house development studios in France, Germany, and the UK. Things are going great, and the money is coming in, but Ubisoft has a problem. They're having trouble getting a foothold in the United States. At the time, much like today, the US video game industry was huge, completely outpacing sales in Europe and the rest of the world. Ubisoft keeps sending games over there, but nothing's really sticking. In 1995, they released Rayman, a stroke of genius by Michael Ansel, and it instantly becomes a cult classic. Unfortunately, the US just wasn't ready for Rayman in the 90s, and while it sold incredibly well in Europe, US sales were noticeably weaker. But Ubisoft wasn't going to sit around and wait for people to notice them. They had big plans. By this point, they already had development studios in Paris, Montpellier, Milan, Annecy, and Barcelona. They released games like The Adventures of Lomax, F1 Pole Position, The Horde, The Settlers 3, Rayman Rush, and Rayman 2 The Great Escape during this time. But still, nothing is working. Why won't Americans buy our games? During this time, Ubisoft opens a development studio in Canada in 1997, Ubisoft Montreal. Why Canada? 2 reasons: tax breaks, and because Ubisoft Montreal sounds way fancier than Ubisoft Detroit. This studio became the crown jewel of Ubisoft's empire, producing some of their most iconic games. More on that later. By 1999, the internet was taking off, and Ubisoft made a big brain move by investing in Gameloft, a studio specializing in free-to-play online games. This is probably the single greatest decision they made in the 90s, increasing Ubisoft's stock value by over 5 times. The Guillemot brothers had it all, but they wanted one thing: America. Ubisoft goes full Pokemon in the 2000s, catching as many studios and franchises as possible. First, they snatched up Sinister Games and Red Storm Entertainment, which gave them access to the Tom Clancy series. This was the jackpot. Finally, Ubisoft had something Americans loved: guns. In 2002, they dropped Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell as an Xbox exclusive, and just like that, Ubisoft officially had tactically inserted themselves into the United States. But they weren't done yet. In 2001, they bought Blue Byte and the Learning Company's entertainment division. From this, they released Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time and Beyond Good and Evil, both critically acclaimed series. Can you even call Beyond Good and Evil a series? Come on, Ubisoft, where's 2? Around this time, the iconic Ubisoft swirly is revealed to the world. From here, Ubisoft goes on a tear. They released tons of Tom Clancy and Prince of Persia games alongside some notable franchises like Driver, only real ones know. And they also start cooking with Crytek to put out a game nobody will play. But in 2007, Ubisoft Montreal released Assassin's Creed. This legendary franchise changes everything. Fast forward to the 2010s, Ubisoft is sitting on a golden throne of success. Assassin's Creed was dominating game sales, Far Cry had become a classic for FPS fans, and Just Dance was tapping into a casual market Nintendo could only dream of. Their Montreal studio was churning out banger after banger. I mean, just look at some of these franchises, it's ridiculous. They were making just about anything, from batshit crazy projects like Rabbids, while still delivering grittier tactical shooters like Rainbow Six Siege. Despite what shareholders might believe, the line can't always go up, and Ubisoft couldn't keep this up forever. The first warning signs came in 2014. Watch Dogs was hyped to oblivion with trailers that promised a gritty, futuristic hacking experience. But when players finally got their hands on it, they found a game that was more meh than masterpiece. The graphics were a noticeable downgrade from E3 reveals, and the gameplay was fine. This pattern of overpromising and underdelivering would become Ubisoft's calling card. The Division launched with similar hype in 2016, but struggled to live up to expectations. Again, the graphics were heavily downgraded, and the gameplay was also just fine. And they just kept doing this over and over and over again. Even the Assassin's Creed series, the Golden Calf, stopped giving the goods. From 2007 to 2015, Ubisoft had churned out an annual AC release like clockwork, and they were just getting worse and worse every year. AC Unity became infamous for their glitches, like the horrifying faceless NPCs that looked like something straight out of a nightmare. I think this game really marks a shift for the franchise, and it never really recovered from here. Seriously, Assassin's Creed isn't even recognizable anymore. And what did we even get in return? Single-player EXP boosters? Ubisoft's final chance to turn the ship around, no pun intended, had to be the release of the first ever quadruple A game, Skull and Bones. The game took 11 years to develop, and what did we get in that time? A mediocre pirate game that literally nobody plays or talks about anymore. It was also riddled with microtransactions. What the fuck, guys, please. Like, you can't even go on land as a pirate. What? You collect loot from the ship. Seriously, what were these guys thinking? And then finally we got Star Wars Outlaws, which was fun but a little generic. Again, just more games with no soul, but are mechanically alright.
But when does this game get fucking good?
The thing is, in these times, people aren't looking for games that are just fine. They're looking for games like Baldur's Gate 3, like Elden Ring, like Cyberpunk. Gamers want games that do something new, something fun. They're not going to buy your bare-bones, open-world shooter just because you slap Star Wars on the cover. But that's really the epitome of what Ubisoft has been doing in recent years, hasn't it? Just slapping big names on safe, creatively bankrupt projects. So what's the problem here? Why are games like this now? Well, you can blame the Ubisoft editorial board for that. Ubisoft's editorial board was actually incredible at some point. They were behind approving key decisions like Rayman, Assassin's Creed, Child of Light, and Immortals Fenyx Rising. Once lauded for injecting creativity and diversity into their games, it was now killing them, slowly. The board demanded every game follow the same formula you know and hate. Boring open worlds, endless side quests, towers to climb, and repetitive gameplay loops and microtransactions. Whether it was Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, or Ghost Recon, it all started to feel the same.
Played these games before! I said I played these games before!
And it only gets worse from here. Ubisoft Quartz, launched in 2021, introduced NFTs for games like Ghost Recon Breakpoint, aiming to let players buy, use, and sell digital items. Owning the stuff you earn in-game sounds pretty great, right? Nah, this was a cash grab to sell you stuff at an even higher margin, with a side of environmental destruction. Then they launched a full-blown NFT game in 2024 called Champions Tactics that nobody liked. There was also Ubisoft basically telling players to get comfortable not owning their games anymore, and then they yoinked the crew from anyone who owned it. You literally cannot play this game anymore, and this called into question game ownership in general, which yeah, you don't own any of them, get fucked. But the biggest cracks weren't in the games, they were in the company itself. The workplace culture of Ubisoft was starting to decline. As the company grew, it lost more and more of its original developers, and began hiring inexperienced devs instead. Employees also reported that the workplace was becoming toxically positive, and giving honest feedback became difficult. This isn't even the worst part. Soon, reports of workplace misconduct began to surface, painting a pretty dark picture of Ubisoft. It was alleged management would hold female employees down and kiss them in the office, and when senior staff were informed, they did nothing. Even Yves Guillemot, the CEO, could not dodge the fallout as fans and employees demanded accountability. This was a clusterfuck of shit that tanked the stock price of the company and led to a wave of resignations and firings, including high-profile executives. but the damage had already been done. And now we're here, at the release of Assassin's Creed Shadows. This is probably one of the most important game releases in the company's entire history. Assassin's Creed fatigue had been settling in for a few years now, with games like Origins, Odyssey, Valhalla, and the recent Mirage being met with mixed reception, at best. Honestly, these games started going downhill ever since they got rid of Desmond Miles. That motherfucker was a real one, and the series has never been the same since. So did Assassin's Creed Shadows save the franchise? Yeah, sorry, I know I suckered you into watching this whole video, but I'm actually going to be covering that next week in a review, so subscribe. I'd rather give a real opinion than just what a bunch of reviewers are saying. That's the walleye difference. The history of Ubisoft all started because of the innovative thinking of 5 brothers, but these days, Ubisoft has become the poster child for lazy, repetitive, and soulless games. Whether you were born in the 80s, 90s, or 2000s, I think most can say that Ubisoft was an important part of their childhoods. I really hope they make it. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. If you made it to the end, comment "Bwah!" I recently launched a membership with some really cool emojis and other perks, so if you want to support the channel, go check it out. I'm also going to start streaming in April, so be on the lookout for that. It's going to be pretty awesome. I'm not just going to be sitting in front of a camera doing shit. Like, it's going to be pretty cool. I got a lot of stuff working in the background for that. Anyway, please like and subscribe, push this video out to the algorithm gods. And yeah, take care. Peace!